a welcome like that. So.
Thank God.
Well, fortunately, thank God it's not every day you turn 40 either. So, first of all, let me just say thank you to Randy and Diane for opening up their lovely home for us today and hosting this event. They've been great friends for many years, and now that they have this new condo, we have taken great advantage of it this election season, and we'll continue to do so. I know you guys have a fundraiser again in 2 weeks for Eric Scherzing too. So thank you, both of you, for doing that. And thank you all for joining us today. John, for coming all the way from Plymouth. And I also want to introduce Michelle Fecto, who also sits on the State Board of Education, has joined us. Michelle came on the state a couple years ago and has been such a huge blessing for me to have someone like her on the State Board of Education, because she's so thoughtful, particularly when it comes to special education issues related to poverty, environmental health. So I really appreciate your work on the board as well. I'll be very brief because it's a wonderful day out and there's great food, and I know Diane doesn't want to have to put any of it away, so I'm going to make sure that you get a chance to eat all of it. I was blessed 8 years ago to get the nomination for the State Board of Education and ran in a year when Democrats did really well. So I've been serving on the state board for the past 8 years. The last 4, I've been the vice chair of the state board. I also chair the legislative committee, and I've done that for the last 4 years as well. And I have to say that those 4 years have been quite interesting, to say the least. Some of the stuff coming out of Lansing just makes you wonder, what are they thinking? What are they doing? But there really is, you know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. 8 years ago, when I ran for the state board, I never imagined that today one of the biggest and most important responsibilities I would have is simply defending the concept of public education. And unfortunately, that's where we are today. We have folks in Lansing, you know, so-called leaders, who honestly believe that public education, it's a concept that has basically ran its course. And really the future of education is about privatization, it's about competition, it's about seeing who, you know, the fittest get to win, basically, is what it comes down to. And, you know, there's a lot of money spent on public education, so, you know, there are some folks out there who have wanted for a long time to get their hands on that money. And every policy we have seen come out of Lansing has really followed that philosophy. Everything from raiding the school aid fund, which we've done to pay for things it was never intended to pay for, like you know, pensions and community colleges, four-year universities. These were never things intended to come out of the school aid fund, but now they do. Also, a lot of the charter school bills that we've seen come out of Lansing has followed that philosophy. A couple years ago, when the legislature decided to lift any cap we have on charter schools, keeping in mind, of course, that Michigan has more for-profit charter schools than any state in the country, and in fact, in more than most of the states combined. Yes, so we at the state board said, look, if you're going to do this, the least you can do is put a quality measure in, so that we can take a look at these for-profit companies and say, if you have a portfolio of charter schools and none of them are performing at any reasonable standard, you shouldn't be able to open more. You know, you should have to take care of the charter schools you have before you continue to open more and more charter schools and make more and more money. And we also said that, you know, we need to take a look at the leases. These charter management companies also own sister companies that are real estate holding companies. So it's no surprise when you lease a building to yourself that you can lease it for 2 and 3 times market value. And these are all taxpayer dollars we're talking about. No oversight, nothing. And the legislature is basically, they on its face said, we don't want to do that. And the reason they did that is because they claim, well, the market will take care of it. But the market is your kids, and the market is your tax dollars. And as of yet, the market hasn't really taken care of that. What's actually happened is your locally governed, locally supported public schools are now struggling. We have more public school districts in deficit than we've ever had in the history of the state. Last year we had 55 districts. That's 1 in 10 in deficit. And what happens when they go into deficit is they start combining classes. So you get these outrageously large class sizes. They start closing buildings. That really, the folks will say this is about choice, but that's choice too. 90% of parents in the state who choose to send their child to a public school choose a locally governed, locally supported school. So every time we create legislation that makes it more and more difficult for these schools to not only excel, but even survive, we're actually removing choice from our schools. So it's really important that we have voices in Lansing who believe in public education, who understand the value of public education, and will fight for these things. So let me just say one more thing. Usually, a State Board of Education, it's an important race, but it has, there's 8 of us, and there's 2 up every year. So you kind of think, well, there's not going to be huge transitions depending on what happens. Not true this year. We have a 6-2 board right now, 6 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 2 of the seats that are up are both Democrats. One of the most important things that the state board does is hire and fire the state superintendent. And next year, we will be hiring a new state superintendent. So that can either happen with a 6-2 board that believes in the value of public education, or it can happen with a 4-4 split board, where 4 of the members buy into the philosophy that privatization and competition is the future of education. That's why it's so important this year that we maintain these 2 seats, because this will have a huge impact on the direction of public education for years and years to come. So thank you so much for coming out.